Welcome all my crochet hooking friends, and thank you for watching Heather's Craft Corner. I'm Heather, and today we will be learning how to crochet the Slightly Twisted Tote bag. If you'd also like access to the free written pattern, check out the link in the description below. This pattern is an intermediate level pattern, presented in US terms. Stitches used in the pattern include the single crochet, double crochet, and front post treble crochet. For this pattern you will need about 625 yards of worsted weight yarn, an I9 5.5mm hook, stitch markers, and a yarn needle. Begin by making a slip knot. Then chain 34. After you have your 34 chains, you're going to make 2 single crochets in the second chain from the hook. So, starting in the second chain from the hook, make your first single crochet. In that same chain, make another single crochet. Because we're going to be working in the round, it's really easy to lose this first single crochet. I like to use a stitch marker in that very first stitch. Then there's no question where that round actually starts. Now we're going to work a single crochet into each of the next 31 chains. After you've done 31 single crochets, you will have one unworked chain left. In that chain, we're going to work 3 single crochets. After you work those 3 single crochets, on my work you can see this knot right here. This space is still that same chain. You're not going to work any more stitches into it. So this will be where you'll start your single crochets going down the other side. You'll work a single crochet into each of the 32 chains. I'll be carrying my yarn with me so that I don't have to weave it in later. So we'll start not there, but over here. You should have 68 stitches. We'll be working in a continuous round, so do not join. Instead, work a single crochet into that first stitch where we had the stitch marker. This is your first stitch of round 2. Now we'll work 2 single crochets into the next stitch. This was our first one, so the very next stitch. So there's 1 and 2. Then we'll work a single crochet into each of the next 31 stitches. After those 31 single crochets, we're going to work a 2-1-2 pattern on this end. So we'll do 2 stitches in that next stitch, so that's 1. Then going into the same stitch, we'll make our second single crochet, so there's 2. Then 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So 2, 1, 2. It should curve around the edge, like that. Now we're going to work a single crochet into the next 31 stitches. We're at the end of round 2 and just finished our 31 single crochets down this side. In this last stitch, we're going to work 2 single crochets. There's 1, and in the same stitch, 2. You should have 72 stitches. To start round 3, we're going to single crochet into the first stitch. Then we're going to do 2 single crochets in each of the next 2 stitches. So we're going to do 1, then into the same stitch 2, and in the next one, we're going to do the same thing. 1 and 2. Now we're going to work down the side again with a single crochet in each of the next 31 stitches. After your 31 single crochets, we're going to work around the end in a 2-2-1-2-2 pattern. So let's do 2 single crochets in each of the next 2 stitches. So we've got 1 and 2 in that next stitch, and 1 and 2 in the next stitch. Then in this next stitch, we'll only do 1 single crochet. So that's a 2-2-1. Now we're going to do 1, 2 in the next stitch, and then 2 single crochets in this next one. So we have 2-2-1-2-2. Next, we'll do a single crochet in each of the next 31 stitches. After you do the 31 single crochets, you should have 2 stitches left. We're going to do 2 single crochets in each of these stitches. So there's 1, then in the same stitch 2, moving to the next one, 1 and 2. You should have 80 stitches. We are now starting round 4, and what we're basically going to do is a 2-1-2 pattern in each of the corners. So we'll start with a single crochet in the first stitch, then we'll do that 2-1-2 in this first corner. What I mean by that is we'll do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 in the next, and 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So there's 1, then in the same stitch 2, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, moving to the next one, 1 and 2. Now we'll work down the side with a single crochet in each of the next 33 stitches. After you finish the 33 single crochet, you'll be at the next corner and we'll be doing a 2-1-2 over these next 3 stitches. Now the way it's written in the pattern is a 2-1 repeated 4 times. That's mostly to make it easier to read. Personally, I think it's easier to think of it as 2-1-2 in the corners, separated by a single crochet in the middle, but that's just me. So we'll do 2 single crochets in this first stitch, then 1 single crochet, do 2 single crochets in the next, so that's 2 1 2, and now we'll do 1 more single crochet. This is basically 2 of the repeats in the pattern. Now we're back to doing 2 1 2 again in the next corner, so 2 single crochets in this next stitch, one single crochet in the next stitch, and 2 single crochets in the next. Now to complete the 4th repeat written in the pattern, we'll do another single crochet in the next. So working down this side, we need a total of 33 single crochets, but we've already done the first one. So we need to do a single crochet in each of the next 32 stitches. That's also how the pattern is written, so a single crochet in each of the next 32 stitches. Now we're at our last corner of round 4, so we'll be doing another 2 1 2. You should have 3 stitches left in the row, so we'll do 2 single crochet in the next stitch, 1, 2, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and 2 single crochets in this last stitch, 1, 2. You should have 88 stitches. Starting round 5, we're going to work a single crochet in this first stitch. So now we have a 2 1 2. So there's 2 going into this stitch, one here, and 2 into this stitch. So 2 1 2. Working down this side, we will work a single crochet into each of the next 37 stitches. After your 37 single crochets, we'll again be doing a 2 1 2 in the corner, then 1 single crochet, then a 2 1 2 in the next corner. So you're going to do a 2 1 2, 1, 2 1 2. As the pattern is written, it just has the 2 1 repeated 4 times, so we'll follow the pattern. So here's 2 single crochets in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the next, then the second repeat, 2 single crochets, one single crochet, then we're on the third repeat, 2 single crochets, one single crochet, and then the fourth repeat, 2 single crochets, and 1 single crochet. We'll now work down the other side. There are 37 single crochets down the side, but we already did the first one, so you'll need 36 more. Let's go ahead and do a single crochet in each of the next 36 stitches. After working down the side, you should have 3 stitches left. 1, 2, 3. In this last corner in round 5, we'll also be doing a 2, 1, 2. So here's 1, 2 in the same stitch, 1 single crochet in this next stitch, and 1, 2 single crochets in this last stitch. You should have 96 stitches. Your work should now look something like this. You can start to see those ends squaring off. For round 6, we're going to start with a single crochet in each of these first 2 stitches. For this round, our ends will be a 2, 1, 2 in the corner, but this time they will be separated by 3 single crochets. Here's our first corner. We'll do a 2, 1, 2. So in this first stitch, we'll do 1, 2 single crochets, a single crochet in this next stitch, and 1, 2 in the next stitch. Now we'll work down our first side by working a single crochet into each of the next 39 stitches. When we get to the end after working the 39 single crochets, basically the way this is going to go is a 2, 1, 2, then 1, 2, 3 single crochets, and a 2, 1, 2. So you'll have the 2, 1, 2s in the corner with 3 single crochets in between. I'm going to walk it through as it's written in the pattern, so you're going to have repeating sections of 2 and 1. So what we're going to do is start with 2 single crochets in the next stitch and 1 in the next stitch 2 times. We have 1, 2 in the first stitch, 1 in the next, then we're going to repeat that. 1, 2 in the next stitch, and 1 in the next. After the 2 repeating sections, we'll do a single crochet, then we'll do another repeating section, but this is reversed. So we'll do 1 single crochet in the next stitch, then 2 single crochets in the next, 1, 2, and we'll do it again. So 1 single crochet, then 2 single crochets, 1, 2. So when we worked down this side in the previous rounds, the number of single crochets was different than the first side. We won't do that on this round because we ended with a 2 single crochet. So we will work down this side with 39 single crochets. After your 39 single crochets, you should have 4 stitches left. We're going to do a repeat of 2, 1, 2, 1. Basically what that is we have 2, 1, 2 in the corner, and since we already have 2 of the 3 single crochets over here, we need 1 more to have those 3 in between the corners. Back to the way the pattern is written, with the 2 repeats, we'll do 2 single crochets, 1, 2, 1 single crochet in the next, 2 single crochets, 1, 2, and 1 single crochet in that last stitch. You should have 104 stitches. Your end should look something like this, and your work should be lying relatively flat. For round 7, the ends will have 5 single crochets between the 2, 1, 2 in the corners. So we're going to start with a single crochet in the first 3 stitches. Here's a single crochet in the first stitch, single crochet in the next, and a single crochet in that third stitch. Now we're at a corner, and you're probably getting a hang of this by now, but we're going to do 2, 1, 2. So 1, 2 single crochets in that same stitch, 1 single crochet in the next, and 1, 2 in the next. Now we'll work a single crochet in each of the next 41 stitches down the side of our work. After you have your 41 single crochets, we're back at a corner, and this end will have your 2, 1, 2, then 5 single crochets, and another 2, 1, 2. Let's work through it again as it's written in the pattern. So we'll start with a 2, 1 repeated twice. So 1, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and 2 single crochets in the next stitch. One in the next stitch. There's the first repeated section. Now we'll work a single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So 1 single crochet in this stitch, 1 single crochet in the next, and 1 single crochet in the next stitch. The next repeating section is a reverse of the first one, so it's a 1, 2 repeated twice. So 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 2 in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 2 single crochets in the next. This side will be the same as the other side, so we're going to work a single crochet in the next 41 stitches. After your 41 single crochets, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches left. We're going to do that 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 1. As it's written in the pattern, it's going to be a 2, 1 repeat and an additional 1 single crochet. So we'll do 1, 2 single crochets in this first stitch, 1 single crochet in the next, repeat 1, 2 single crochets, 1 single crochet in the next, then 1 single crochet in the last stitch. You should have 112 stitches. For round 8, the ends will have a 2-1-2, 7 single crochets in between, and a 2-1-2. That's the short version. We'll go ahead and work through it as it's written. We'll start with a single crochet in the first 4 stitches. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 'for the corner, it's the 2-1-2, so 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next, 2 single crochets in the next stitch. We'll work down the side again, this time working a single crochet into each of the next 43 stitches. After working those 43 single crochets, we'll be doing a 2-1-2, then a single crochet in the next 7 stitches, then 2-1-2. This time, that's also how the pattern is written. In the next stitch, work 1, same stitch 2 single crochets, then 1 single crochet in the next, then 1, same stitch 2 single crochets in the next. Now 1 single crochet into each of the next 7 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We're at another corner, so it'll be a 2-1-2. So 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1, back into that same stitch 2, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. This side will be the same as the other side, so work a single crochet in each of the next 43 stitches. After your 43 single crochets, you should have 6 stitches left. We're going to do 2 single crochets in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and 2 single crochets in the next stitch. That's our 2-1-2 in the corner. Then we'll do 1 single crochet in each of the last 3 stitches. You should have 120 stitches. With round 9, we're going to add a little stability to this bottom. In this round, I'm not going to remove my stitch marker, and we're going to slip stitch into each stitch around. So here's the first slip stitch. What I am going to do is put another stitch marker into the last stitch of round 8 because it will easily get lost among those slip stitches. We'll move on to the next one. Just move your stitch marker out of the way. Keep working slip stitches in each stitch around. Now we're at the last few stitches. Make sure you go all the way to the last stitch. What this round does is it thickens the edge by adding 3 strands of yarn to round 8. So we will now work round 10 around both the single crochet from round 8 and the slip stitches from round 9. For this first stitch in round 10, I'm going to leave the stitch marker in that first stitch and the stitch marker there in the last stitch of the round. You'll insert your hook into the single crochet from round 8. And you can see from the back that you're right where that stitch marker is. You'll insert your hook right between these slip stitches next to the last stitch from round 8. And it should be right where that first stitch marker is. Then go ahead and work your first single crochet into that single crochet from round 8 and around the slip stitch from round 9. Now you can take out your stitch marker and insert it into the stitch you just made. The side of your work that's been facing you, the right side, is going to be the bottom of your bag. So as you work round 10, try to work the stitch so it kind of comes to the top. We'll go ahead and work a single crochet into that next stitch. From the wrong side, you can still see those individual stitches from round 8, so use them as your guide so you don't skip any stitches. Stitch count after this round is a must. Continue working 1 single crochet into each stitch. Again, you can see those stitches from the wrong side. From the right side, it looks like you're working between those slip stitches. Working around both round 8 and round 9 will create a thickened ridge around the base of your bag. As you reach the end of round 10, make sure you go all the way to that last marked stitch. Again, stitch count is a must. You should have 120 stitches. You can remove that last stitch marker. This is what your work should look like at this point. This is the right side. Here's the wrong side. The wrong side is actually going to face up, so you'll want to try and roll those stitches toward the top, or at least so they're flat. On the wrong side, you can see the ridge we just created around the base. From the right side, it blends in pretty well, but you can feel it with your fingers. For rounds 11 through 16, you're going to work 1 single crochet in each stitch around, and you should have 120 stitches after each round. Round 17 is like rounds 11 through 16, except at the end of the round, you're going to center your stitches into the fold of the bag. Centering your stitches now will make your seam basically invisible in this pattern. So take your bag and lay it flat. Make sure your fold is centered over the edges. For mine, you can see the fold falls right here. So I'm going to add 2 stitches to move the start of round 18 directly into the fold. So round 18 will now start here. Now join with a slip stitch. To start round 18, you'll need to chain 2, which does not count as a stitch. Starting in this first stitch, we're going to work a double crochet. Go ahead and mark that first stitch. When you lay it flat, you can see how this fits right into the fold. For this round, you're going to work a double crochet into each stitch around. At the end of the round, finish the round by joining with a slip stitch. For round 19, chain 2. Again, it doesn't count as a stitch. For the first stitch, we're going to leave the stitch marker for a moment, and we're going to start a double crochet. So pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, but leave the last 2 loops on the hook. Then you're going to skip the next 2 stitches and work around the post of this stitch right here. So here's your first, skip 2, and work around this one. We're going to work a front post treble, so yarn over twice, insert your hook from front to back to front around that stitch post, yarn over and pull up a loop, bringing it up to row height, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops again. You should have 3 loops left on the hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Now you can remove your stitch marker and mark that first stitch. This is your double crochet front post treble together. We'll go over that again in a minute. Next, you'll work a double crochet in each of the skip stitches. Here are your 2 skip stitches right here. You can see them from the front. 1, 2. You'll be working behind that front post treble and working 1 double crochet into each of these 2 stitches. That's what it should look like, so we'll do that again. So we'll be working in the next stitch, which is the stitch that the front post treble is worked around, right here. We're going to start the double crochet front post treble together stitch. So yarn over and insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. You'll have 2 loops left on the hook. Now skip the next 1, 2 stitches, and we'll work around the third one. Yarn over twice, insert the hook from front to back to front, yarn over and draw up a loop to row height, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through 2 loops again, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. Again, you can see 1, 2 skip stitches. If you look at the top, you can see those 2 V's. That's what you're working into. Let's do 1 double crochet in that first skip stitch. Remember, you're working behind the front post treble. then a double crochet into the second skip stitch, again we have that front post treble wrapping around this post. That's your next stitch and where you'll be working the next double crochet front post treble together stitch. So let's yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Skip the next 2 stitches and work the front post treble around the post of the 3rd stitch. Yarn over twice and draw up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through 2 loops again, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Now we'll work a double crochet in each skip stitch, then continue this repeat around. At the end of round 19, when we're working our last double crochet front post treble together stitch, you're going to be skipping the last 2 stitches of the round. This is your chain 2, it's not a stitch, so pretend it's not even there. So you're going to skip this stitch and your chain 2. You're going to work around this post. You can see that it lines up with your first stitch because it's the first stitch of round 18. Not this one or this one. Those are the last 2 stitches of the round. This is your chain 2, so it's not a stitch. And then we're going to work around this first stitch of the round. Let's yarn over twice, skip, skip, not a stitch, and around this post. Finish the round with a double crochet in those 2 skip stitches. Finally, join the round with a slip stitch. You should have 120 stitches. Round 20 through 37 are going to be worked exactly the same, so chain 2 to start round 20. We'll work the double crochet front post treble together, starting in this first stitch. Yarn over, insert your hook, draw up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. For this round, we'll work our front post treble around the front post treble from the previous round. Yarn over twice, insert your hook behind this post right here, yarn over, drop a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops again, and then yarn over, pull through the remaining 3 loops. This will give us a continual raised stitch. We have our skip stitches here and here. We'll go ahead and work a double crochet into each of those. These can be very easy to miss, so pay attention to where you're working the stitch. Now, while this front post treble isn't around the post of our next stitch in this round, it will still line up with it. That's where we'll start our next double crochet front post treble together. We'll work the double crochet, leaving the last 2 loops on the hook. Then we'll work the front post treble around the next front post treble from the round below and finish the stitch. One double crochet in each of the skip stitches. Then continue this repeat around until the end of round 37. We're at the end of round 37. We'll work this last repeat. then join with a slip stitch. For round 38, we'll chain 1 and work a single crochet into the first stitch. Continue working single crochets into each stitch around. As we come to the end of the round, you will not join, but work right into that first stitch for the next round. You should have 120 stitches. For round 39 through 42, you'll continue working a single crochet into each stitch around. As you get to the end of round 42, you're going to want to lay the bag flat again. We're going to center the beginning of the round in the middle of the fold. So make sure that fold is centered over the short edge of the bottom of the bag. You'll end up stopping your round over here in the fold. Because we are working in the round, the beginning of your round will tend to drift. We've done lots of rounds, so there's a lot of drift. So we need to stop this round right here so that our handles will be centered in the bag and not off to one side. Right here is going to be the new start of my round, so I'll move the stitch marker over here. As you can see, that took out quite a few stitches. Double check that it lines up. For your stitch count, even though you didn't work the 120 stitches in this round, it still has 120 stitches if you count them. Round 43 is kind of done in 30 stitch sections. So the first section is centered over your first stitch, so we're going to work a single crochet into the first 15 stitches. After those 15 single crochets, put a stitch marker into that 15th stitch. This helps you know exactly where the section ends and where your chain is going to start. Now we'll chain 70. Make sure you do not twist the chain. We're going to skip 30 stitches. That's 30. So we're going to work a single crochet into the 31st stitch from here. We'll also put another stitch marker in this single crochet to help know exactly where this section starts and our chain ends. After the chain, we will single crochet into each of the next 30 stitches, but we've already done the first one here, so we need 29 more. Again, we'll mark the 30th stitch. This time I'm going to count the 30 stitches before I start to chain. So I'll mark that 31st stitch. Then we'll chain 70 again. There should be 30 stitches between these two markers. Join with a single crochet as we did before. The round finishes with 15 single crochets. We did the first one already, so we have 14 left. For round 44, we're going to single crochet into the first 15 stitches, and then we'll single crochet in each chain. I'll show you that when I get there, but let's start with a single crochet in the first 15 stitches. Work into that marked stitch. You can get rid of the stitch marker now. We'll now work into that chain. You can see the first chain right here. I'm going to work into this back bump, which gives it a nice finished edge. To do that, I'm going to come from behind and into this back bump, and then make my single crochet. Now, if you decide this is too difficult, you can always just work into the chain space. It will look just fine. I'm not going to do that because I want the V's to go all the way around my handle. So I'll work into that back bump and single crochet in each of those 70 chains. If you're working into the chain space, make 70 single crochets. At the end of the handle, those chains can get a little tight, so make sure you don't miss that last one. Then we'll work a single crochet into each of the next 30 stitches. You can go ahead and reinsert the stitch marker to help you with your stitch count across the handle if you'd like, otherwise you can just toss it aside. You'll work this handle as you did the previous handle. So I thought I would do a few stitches into the chain space so you can see the difference. If you're working into the chain space, you will have to spread your stitches out, but once they're all spread out, it looks like this. So you can see the difference between the two methods and choose the one you prefer. We'll finish up this handle and work a single crochet into the last 15 stitches. Again, you can remove that stitch marker and toss it aside. You should have 200 stitches. For rounds 45 through 48, you'll work a single crochet into each stitch around. Your single crochets will continue right over your handles. As you finish this last round, you will end with an invisible fasten off. So we'll cut our yarn and pull it through. Remove the stitch marker. What we'll do is basically sew a slip stitch into the second single crochet of the round. So skip this first stitch, and we'll work into this second stitch. Thread the yarn into the yarn needle. Skip the first stitch, and insert the needle from the back under both the front and back loops. Pull through just enough to make that strand lay over the skip stitch. Insert the needle into the last stitch of the round by going from the top and through the front loop only. Tighten it so it blends in with your other stitches. Then you're going to insert your needle into the last stitch of the round again from front to back, going under both the front and back loops. Weave in your ends. This should be what your bag looks like when you're done. Go ahead and nerd out, get all excited about it. You just created a bag out of string. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. For the free written pattern, follow the link in the description below. Also follow that link for information on supplies used in this video. Don't forget to support my channel by clicking subscribe and ringing the bell. If you found this video helpful, please let others know by clicking like and leaving a comment. Happy crocheting!